Hello, hello, hello. What is like so red in here tonight? I don't know why I think it's because I have this blue sweatshirt on. Every time I like wear like blue, it makes me look like red. I know I always say this, that it's not going to be a long vlog, but tonight it really is not going to be a long vlog, and I'll tell you why. Because I was driving around and I was listening to my audiobook, and I was like, I'm going to drive up the interstate, and then when I get up there, I'm going to start vlogging and come back and then go to bed. So I waited and I waited and I waited and I waited because I was listening to my audiobook, and I kept on driving and I kept on driving, and I pulled over to get my camera out. And my camera was at home in my backpack because I ran around today and I was going to film today, so I put it in my backpack when I left. I was like, damn it. So I had to run all the way home. And I had to take the dogs out, and then I had to get my camera and come back out and vlog. So it is 5:37 a.m. I'm tired. I have training at 1. And marriage counseling at 6. I've got a bunch of stuff I have to do in between. Plus, I'd like to make a few videos. So, yeah, I'm gonna go up here and then I'm gonna turn around and go back, and then that's gonna be my vlog tonight. So I don't know. It may not even be a half an hour, but today was a good day. I got up and we went to brunch, and and Alex had what he always had. I actually had croissant French toast this morning, and potatoes, crispy potatoes, and a huge glass of orange juice, and it was like fresh squeezed orange juice. Tastes so good. Coffee and water. That was my breakfast. I was like feeling like needing something sweet this morning. I know. It was delicious, and it was so funny because like today was not a good healthy eating day today, because so we came home and I was gonna film a bunch of videos because I had stuff I wanted to make videos about, and then I just kind of like started talking on the phone, and then I like ran out to run some errands. I was like, I'll make them when I come back, and then I came back and I got real tired, and Alex was asleep. But I walked inside, I was like, hello, and the dogs were barking. I didn't hear anything, and I was like, hello. And I sat down at the computer and I was like finishing up the vlog from yesterday and like putting it up. And Alex didn't say anything, and I go, hello. And he had fallen asleep. So I went upstairs and got into bed with him and the dogs, and we napped like hardcore. And I woke up at like 9. He was getting up. And he like came over to give me a kiss, and he said, I'm gonna take your car, I'm hungry, I'm gonna go to Taco Bell. And I was like, Taco Bell? He goes, yeah, do you want something? And I was like, oh, of course I want something if you're going to Taco Bell. I was like starving all of a sudden. And he goes, well, just text it to me. So he went and got us Taco Bell, and then we watched The Real Housewives of Atlanta. And then he was talking on the phone to his best friend. She just got back in town. And then I was like doing some stuff on the computer. And yeah, that was about it. And then he went to bed, and I went upstairs and I was like talking to him and stuff. And then he fell asleep. And then I took the dogs out. And then I left to start listening to my audiobook. And that was kind of my evening. So it was a nice day. It was kind of just real relaxing and not anything big. Oh, I talked to Mel for a while. Hey, Mel. Hey, Mel. She's just finished the book, the BTK Killer book, and she posted it on Instagram, and the author commented on it, which is real exciting. We're going to try to get her to maybe come into the live stream. I'm going to reach out to her and see if she'll come into the live stream and maybe guest for a little bit when we do the live discussion. I think her name's Carrie Rollins, maybe. Mel like texted me the picture of like her commenting on it, so she was real excited. That stuff's fun. When I did like The Outsiders, I read The Outsiders for, did I read it for, I think I read it for Booktubeathon. The first year I did Booktubeathon, like every book I read was, because one of the, so when you do like readathons, they have challenges. And Booktubeathon is like the biggest one they do every year. I think they just changed the name of it though, and because it's like 2 people doing it now, and it's called something else. But it's in July and August. Well, it used to be in July and December. I mean, and now they're just doing it one time a year. So they do it in July, and it's a whole week. And there's 7 challenges, and the idea is to read 7 books in 7 days. Like nobody ever really completes it. There's very few people that complete it, and so the first year I did it, one of the challenges was, like, they're always like, pick a book with yellow in the cover, or, you know, pick a book that has a scary name in the title, or something like that. But that year, I was so excited to do it. I was so excited. I don't know if I've told this story on here. I should tell this story on here. I'll tell it in just a second. Hold on. Hot tamale train. But the first year that I did it, the phone is plugged into the charger. One of the challenges was read a book to film adaptation, and you were supposed to like read the book and watch the movie. And so what I ended up doing was I made every book that I read that year a book to film adaptation, and I read The Outsiders. I feel like I didn't read I feel like I did I don't know. I feel like maybe I didn't read The Outsiders for that. I don't know when I read The Outsiders, but I feel like it was, I don't know, maybe I read Jaws. That was one of them. The book Jaws by Peter Benchley, if you have never read it and you've only seen the movie, you have to read the book. The book is fantastic. Is it not focusing tonight? I can't tell. There, it's focusing. It is fantastic, you guys. It is like one of the best books I've ever read. And the shark is scarier in the book than it is in the movie. But there's whole background stories to it that are not in the movie. Like, there's all kinds of stuff that happens in the book that doesn't happen in the movie. It's such a good book. But if you're going to read it, you have to read it in the summertime or like on a beach trip. You just have to, you know? And then, let's see. I read that. I read The Duff, but I didn't finish The Duff. And I read, it's yellow. It's about a girl that has cancer. Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl. I hated it. Thought that was horrible. That was 3. I read, one of them was read a novella, and I read, Brokeback Mountain by Annie Proulx, because my mother had given it to me like years before. That was fantastic. That was beautifully written. So that was 4. What else did I read that year? Oh, A Single Man by Chris Isherwood. That was really, really good too. The movie was so sad though. The movie with, what's her name? The red hair. I love her in it. I love her, but she was great in it too. Why can't I think of her name? Julianne Moore. Oh, I love her so much. She's not really in a whole lot anymore, is she? I don't think that I've seen her in anything in a long time. So that was 5. What else did I read that year? I should go back and look at my TBR. I don't remember. Maybe The Outsiders? I don't know. I just feel like maybe The Outsiders wasn't part of that. I don't know. So anyway, but when I read The Outsiders, like I tweeted it out how much I loved it, and like Essie Hinton like responded. And I was like, is she even alive still? So I don't know if it was like legit her. I think she still is. I think she is alive. But I was like, is this legit her? Or is this like just like, you know, some account that's supposed to be her, or what is it? But anyway, that was exciting. So whenever authors like tweet you out, I think it's always kind of really exciting. I fan out over all that kind of stuff. Like authors, anybody. Like I'm like, authors are like really big for me. Like I go crazy. Like when Julie Murphy like tweeted me back, I like went crazy because I love Dumplin'. And Angie Thomas, when she tweeted me back about, I think Angie Thomas follows me actually, about The Hate U Give. I love her. Oh my God, that's what I'm listening to right now. Is on the come up. It's so fantastic. And who else? Rhiannon Frater, that wrote the As the World Dies, about the zombie apocalypse. She and I kind of like talked a little bit, I think, in DMs about, because she runs, we talked about, she runs a podcast for the show iZombie. I don't even know if that show's on TV anymore. I started it. I didn't like that as well as like The Walking Dead and stuff, because it was kind of comical. And I don't love that kind of stuff, but anyway, so that's what readathons are. Like, there's a lot of readathons, and I used to participate. You know, I used to not understand why, like, booktubers stopped participating in readathons, and I kind of understand it now. It's like, they kind of come up, and then it's like, oh, there's a readathon happening this weekend, right? And you kind of forget about it. But, like, my first year, I participated in so many of them, and not well. I didn't, like, complete many of them. Like, I did Diversathon, and then I did Booktubeathon. I did the summer and the winter one. I think I did the winter one. Yeah, I did. It was like 3 days. Did I do it? I don't remember. There were like so many that I did that first year, though. I had so much fun. I don't know why, like, I can see myself sitting out there for Booktubeathon, and I remember that summer I also read Summer Days and Summer Nights by Stephanie. It's edited by Stephanie Perkins, and it's an anthology. And the first one that the first anthology that it's all young adult short stories. The first one that she came out with was called My True Love Gave to Me, or My True Love Gave to Thee, or me, I don't know. But anyway, it is so good. And, but the second one was really good too. There just were like, I either loved the stories or I just did not like the stories whatsoever. But I will tell you this, if you're a reader, Rainbow Rowell is coming out with her new book this year, and I am so excited about it. And I think it's called Pumpkin Patch. I think it comes out in October. I cannot wait. I've been waiting for a Rainbow Rowell book for like years. I've read every single one of her books, and I love her books. I've read all of her adult books and all of her young adult books. The first one of hers I listened to was Fangirl, which is such a great novel. And I listened to it on the way back from Florida one year, like when it came out. And then, I don't remember, what are her other ones? I don't know her other young adult ones. Her adult books are Landline. I did not love Landline. Attachments. I really liked Attachments. And there's a third adult one. What's her other young adult book? I can see the covers of them. But anyway, she's so good. Oh, it's Two People's Names. God, it was so good. What was that? I can see it. I can see the cover. I know somebody out there right now is like shouting it at me. Because if you've read Rainbow Rowell, you know she's like fantastic. She's like such a great writer. I'm pulling it around here in this parking lot, so I'm gonna stop and see what it is. I can see their names on the cover of it too, the way that it's written. I can't believe I can't remember it. This donut shop is never open when I'm here because it's always so late, and it's open. This bakery. I should go in there and get some donuts. But you know what? I don't think I need any donuts today. It's something and something, and I can't remember what it is, and it's driving me crazy because I want to know so bad. But I kind of like, do you ever like want to know something but you like wish that you could like remember first? But I don't remember what her third adult book is either. Rainbow. But then she wrote a short novella too that somebody sent me 2 copies of, and I gave one to my friend Erin's daughter. Oh, she did Carry On. I did not love Carry On. Okay, hold on a second. Eleanor and Park. Oh my God, that was such a great book. Fangirl, Carry On, Attachments, Landline. Pumpkinheads, it's a graphic novel. When's it come out? Expected August 27th, 2019. I've never heard of this one. What is this one? Almost Midnight. Where's her website? I'll tell what's on there. Eleanor Park. Wayward Son. September 24th. This Will End in Flames. Final cover coming soon. The sequel to Carry On. Who'd care? God. So, okay. Carry On is this young adult book. I really did not like it. It just was not my thing at all. I don't know, maybe I hadn't read any of, well, I had read, I think, like the first Harry Potter book by that point, but the rest of them I hadn't read. But really what it is it's, okay, so in Fangirl, it's these twin sisters that write this fan fiction, right? And they write about these two characters that are supposedly like Draco Malfoy and Harry Potter. And so then it's like Carry On is like the fan fiction of like those two characters. It's not really Harry Potter and Draco Malfoy, but it is Draco Malfoy and Harry Potter. But what would happen if they were like in love? I just didn't care for it. And it was extremely long too, and I listened to it on Audible, and I'm just like, But Landline's about this woman. That's the adult book. I had Tanya read her adult books and she didn't like them. But Landline, Attachments is about this girl, and like it goes back and forth between like her dating and stuff like that. I liked that a lot, and like work in this office. But I think that's Attachments. Landline's about this woman, and she's like away from her family over Christmas, and I was hoping to make it through the whole vlog without it falling, but that didn't happen. Okay, so anyway, Landline was about this woman, and she's like a television writer, and like I think her husband and daughter go home for Christmas, or husband, I can't remember. Anyway, maybe she goes home for Christmas. She stays in California, I think, is how it is. But anyway, and so she has these meetings she has to go to, and she has to have the television pilot done and by a certain time and all this kind of stuff. So she stays, I can't remember how it is, but anyway, there's something about this landline phone. She pulls this landline phone out of a closet, and it's like this old phone that she used to have in her room back in the day. I feel like maybe she's staying with her mother or something like that. And it's like the phone that she used when she like was like dating her husband or back in the day. And so she's like, but like when the phone rings, it's like him, but it's like, stupid camera, I'm doing this. But it's like him back in the day, and then she feels like she's cheating on her husband with her husband. It's just real weird. It's just real weird. But it was good. Like it was, you know, it was something different. I like anything that kind of like takes some creative license and it's a little different, you know what I mean? So anyway, that was Landline. You guys are like, we don't care. Anyway, the readathon story, booktubeathon. I don't know if I've ever told this on here. So I've told it on my booktube channel before, but so I started booktube. My booktube anniversary is May 11th. And, you know, like, it's weird. Like, I had made YouTube videos before, but, like, this was, like, my first time being real serious about it. And, like, knowing that I was going to post regularly. And I had been watching booktubers for a little while. And, you know, I, like, really wanted to do this. But, I mean, I honestly never thought I would have more than, like, 100 or 200 subscribers, maybe. You know, like, that was what, at that time, like, a lot of the booktubers I was watching, like, they had, like, thousands of, you know, subscribers. But I never in a million years would have ever thought like YouTube would have turned out like this. I just never had any idea. I really didn't, you know. And you know, I had told like Tanya and Alex I wanted to do it, and they both were like, okay, but like another project, because I'm like real big with projects, right? Which is always interesting to me, because people are always like, you know, like, if I get criticism sometimes from people that don't like me, it's like, well, you don't finish anything. I'm like, really? I've written a book. I have 5 channels that I post on regularly. You know, like, I have a pretty successful marriage. You know, I feel like I've completed a lot of things in my life. Like, I feel pretty successful. I have a master's degree. I have an undergraduate degree, you know, like, I feel like I've been pretty successful in my life. But, you know, whatever. I talked to my sponsor for a long time today, and we were talking about stuff, and she just has such a great attitude about things. So anyway, but like one of the things I was really excited about doing was like readathons. Like I was super excited about it. I had seen people's like videos about readathons, and so I knew booktubeathon was coming up because I did it in May and booktubeathon is in July. So I was like, I'm really excited about doing booktubeathon. And like for me, that felt like I was like part of the booktube community, right? And I think there's this misconception that like BookTube is like filled with people that are just like young. That's just really not the case. There's actually quite a few booktubers that are like my age. Like quite a few booktubers that are 30 to 50 that have very successful channels. So anyway, but you know, like, some of them don't do like readathons. A lot of people don't do readathons, but that was one thing I was really excited about, because it just kind of seemed like a game that had to do with reading, and I love to read, and I've always loved to read, and you know, it was like, it reminded me of back in the day, like when I would do like the summer reading challenges, where if you read so much, you got like, you know, a prize or whatever. I always did those when I was a kid growing up, and I loved them. And so there are so many potholes all over the road. So anyway, I was really excited about it, and it was creeping up, and Alex knew I was excited about it. And so like, readathons usually start at midnight going into the next day. Like, oh, please don't. Okay, so readathons usually start like at midnight going the next day. So like BookTubeathon starts on a Sunday going into Monday, and it starts at midnight, right? And they do reading sprints. So on Twitter, they'll say like, look at this, it's so not attractive. They'll be like, everybody read for like the next half an hour, and then like, you know, at the end of it, it'll be like, okay, put emojis describing the book that you're reading. It's fun, right? And it's like an interactive way to like talk about books with people. And the reality is, other than Tanya, I don't have a lot of people in my life that read. Really none. Like, none of my friends read, you know? I mean, they might read a book every once in a blue moon, but very rarely. And so, and Tanya and I don't really read the same things typically. I mean, every once in a while, like an alcoholic memoir or, you know, like a thriller, we'll both read. But other than that, we read very different things. So, like, we'll talk about books, but we won't like have a discussion about a book unless it's something that we've both read. So I just didn't have that like interaction, and that was one of the things I loved by starting BookTube. So BookTubeathon was coming up, and like the days leading up to it, I got so excited. I did my TBR, and a TBR is like your to be read. It's like the books that you're going to read like for a readathon or a month or whatever. So I, you know, very deliberately picked my books. That year it was like the movies. And I was really, really excited about it. And I was like, thought I had like the most fantastic TBR in the world. You know, like I put a lot of thought into it, and I was really excited about it. And I went and I bought like all these treats and all these different kinds of drinks. I bought like, you know, different kinds of coffee to make, iced coffee, you know, fresh fruit, cheese. I had like snacks, right? Because you have to have snacks during readathons. And I think I even did a video talking about like what snacks I had or something. Like, it was called like preparing for a readathon. But anyway, so we went out to dinner that night, and I know, like, I think Melissa and Jason were there. I'm almost positive of that, but there was another couple, and I can't remember who it was, and they were all gonna like go downtown afterwards. Like, Alex was gonna go with them and everything, and so they were like, are you gonna come with us too? And I said, no, I have this thing that I'm doing. And Alex was so supportive of it. He was so sweet. Okay, so if this would have been 3 years ago, I would have been, why can't I mean, I literally cannot do math, you guys. Okay, so 2011, I would have been 43, 44, I don't know, it was 3 years ago. You know, and like, everybody's going out, and they're gonna go downtown and stuff, and they're excited about it. And so anyway, like, I was like, no, I'm gonna go home, I've got this thing that I'm doing. And Alex was like, well, babe, tell them about it, you know, like, you're real excited about it. And I was like, no, it's okay. And they were like, no, you know, like, what are you doing? Tell us about it. And so I was like, well, it's like this readathon thing on BookTube. And at that time, I hadn't been on like BookTube, you know, or YouTube very long, so that nobody really understood a whole lot of like what I was doing. Like, they still don't get it. I was just say, my friends still don't really understand what I do. Like, a lot of them will be like, are you still doing that YouTube thing? I love when people ask me that YouTube thing. So, you know, like, they just didn't get it, and I was trying to explain it to them, what you do, and there's like 7 challenges, and it's a week, and whatever, you know, and the reading sprints, and they just didn't really understand it. So they all left, we left dinner, and Alex was really sweet, and he was like, you know, like, text me and let me know how it's going and stuff, and I was like, okay, and he was like, I'm really excited for you, have fun with it, and whatever. And I went home, and let the dogs out, and got all ready on the front porch, and I had like a candle lit out there, and I was really excited. It was like a nice night, and You know, had like iced coffee and everything. And when I start my readathons, I always, like, the first thing I do is I have bookmarks in all the books. First of all, I have them all ready, and then the first thing I do, like, right at midnight, is I put all of my books into Goodreads. Like, I just put them all in there. So Goodreads is an app for reading, and then I just list them all in there so that then I can go in and, like, update them, like, with the pages that I'm reading and things like that. So I was really, really excited about it, right? And so I'm sitting out there on the front porch, and it's literally like 10 till 12. I mean, it's getting ready to start. And I got real weird. Like, I still think about this, you know, like, this is like, it's just a real good example of how I felt most of my life. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, this is so corny. You know, like, your friends are out downtown, like, at a bar, and you're, like, in your 40s, and you're, like, on the front porch getting excited to, like, do this readathon. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, this is, like... And I started putting myself down for, like, the things that, like... The reason it makes me sad is because of what happened after. Because I felt like that, and then, like, midnight turned, and I got on Twitter, and they were talking about the sprints, and so I started putting my books into Goodreads, and then I started doing the first sprint, which was like a half an hour, and like within 5 minutes, I was so in my element of doing something that I loved, and I just was so, like, excited, you know? And looking back on that, it's like, I have allowed other people's perceptions of me, or what I thought people's perceptions of me, or what was cool, or what's not cool, or what's nerdy, or what's not, you know, cool way to live your life, or what you should wear, or what you shouldn't wear, how you should talk, because I always say the wrong things, you know, I always do, and I always have, and, you know, I mean, like, if you're at a party, I always say something stupid, you know, that everybody just kind of looks at you then, like, you know, I bring up the wrong movie or something, you know, and everybody's looking at you like, what? Like, no. You know, I've, like, that's just been me. There's a line in an Indigo Girls song that I love. It's, least complicated. And there's a line in there about always saying the wrong thing. And I always, like, whenever I hear, I love that song. I love the Indigo Girls anyway, but whenever I hear that song, I always think about that. Like, I've always, like, you know, I could be in a classroom and, like, the teacher would ask a question, you know, about, like, oh, what did you do on summer break? And I would say something, you know, and everybody would just look at me like they didn't get it. Like, I've never felt like I fit in, you know? And it was like, in one world for that moment, I didn't fit in. In the other world, I felt like I did fit in. It was like this kind of meeting in my worlds. And what was so weird was over the next couple days, like, my friends all, like, texted me and got real excited with me and were like, oh, are you having fun in your readathon? And, you know, and it was, like, really nice. And it was like, I'm happy that I'm doing this, you know? And so, like, the reason it gets me emotional today is because I look back on my life on all the things I missed, because I was more concerned with how it would be perceived by somebody else, you know, instead of just being who I am, you know, at my core. So, I'm trying not to do that today. You know, I still care what people think, but I want to care what the right people think today. You know, I want to care what my husband thinks, and my best friend, and my sponsor, and my family. And all of those people in my life support me 100% in all of the hobbies and things I want to do that are fun, you know what I mean? Because that's what you do when you love somebody. You support them for the things that they want to do that are cool with their lives, you know? Even if it's just sitting on the front porch reading a book, you support them on that. So my sponsor, okay, so this was the story I was going to say. So I talked to my sponsor today for a long time. I just want to say, because I got this comment, like, it was on my review video, and I was like, what? and I'm gonna be real honest with you, okay? I just blocked the person. It's my channel. If you're gonna come to my review channel and you're gonna start questioning stuff for me, like, listen, that's not the place, okay? It's for me to do a review and for people to have fun. And somebody left me a comment and they said something about, they didn't even say her name. First of all, they came for me for a mistake that I made, slip of the tongue, but then they made a mistake on her name. They said on your video you did with Emily or something, you said in the video that you got sober at 24, but you say that you got sober when you were 22 and a half. I got sober on December 17th of 1994. I've been sober 24 years. So in a video I said I got sober when I was 24 instead of saying I got sober when I was 22, because I've been sober 24 years. So somebody left me this shitty comment about it, questioning my sobriety, and I was laughing to my sponsor today on the phone, and I was telling her that, and she goes, some days I don't even know how long I've been sober. I go, okay. I said, well, your birthday was yesterday. She goes, I know. She started laughing. She goes, who cares? She goes, people don't make mistakes. She goes, I think the real answer to that is, thank God I'm sober. I didn't ever think I'd make it this long. I go, exactly. So anyway, but I was talking to her today, and like, I didn't want to share this on here until after I talked to her, because it was just like such a cool thing that she was doing, and it's something that I've wanted to do for a long time. And I found out at the last minute that she was doing this, or I would have gone too, but Tanya and I really want to do it, and so I think Tanya and I are going to go do it, and I think my sponsor is going to come with us. But so she went to Akron, Ohio this weekend, and Akron, Ohio is like the mecca of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's where it started. I mean, kind of, but like it's known as like the mecca. It's like where the first home group was. And Bill W., who was the founder of Bill Wilson of Alcoholics Anonymous, he came to Akron, Ohio. He was there on business. And so he met with Dr. Bob, and it was the first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And so she went to, I'm like going to get emotional talking about this, because we were talking about, like, you know, like when you're so passionate about something and it saved your life, like the history is important to you, but like the history wasn't important to me my first 5 or 10 years sober. It just wasn't. I didn't care. You know, I didn't care about knowing that his sponsor was Ebby, and, you know, that Ebby struggled staying sober his entire life, and, you know, just like, you know, Sister Ignatius, the nurse, and I just didn't care about all this kind of stuff. And now it's like I have such a desire to go and be part of all of that, you know, because this history saved my life. You know, if it didn't exist, I would not be here right now if that had never happened. If the meeting of these two men had never occurred, I would not be sitting here right now. I would be dead. And so she went to, like, Dr. Bob's gravesite and the house, and she went to the hospital, and she just had a great time. They went to meetings, and she went to the first home group, which is like the first home group meeting that ever existed anyway. I mean, there's a lot of other history, like, you know, Alcoholics Anonymous came out of the Washingtonians, and there's just like tons and tons of history. It was another group that existed before Alcoholics Anonymous. But I was telling her that, like, my mom and I were watching this show. It was like a news coverage show when the year turned from 1999 to 2000, and I remember that year very, very well. And we were like calling each other up like every hour that, like, it would, like, the, you know, the year would change, because that was the year that we thought that Y2K was going to happen, if you remember. And so we didn't know, you know, and like I was going to come over to my mom's house like later. My ex at the time, like, or my boyfriend at the time, my ex now, we were going to go over there, and that was my, like, first legit boyfriend, and he was working, and then we were going to go over there and spend New Year's with my mom. And so my mom and I were watching this show, and it was like the top 100 moments since like the year zero that had like profoundly changed the world, that had like the most impact on the world. And the number one thing was the birth of Jesus Christ. And the number two thing was the meeting of Dr. Bob and Bill W. in Akron, Ohio. just always get real emotional thinking about that, you know, that like, and out of Alcoholics Anonymous, all of the 12-step programs that have come, you know, and all the lives that have been touched and all the people that have been saved by it, you know, just... I think we sometimes think it's not that important to know our history. And, you know, the thing that's really sad about it is, like, I think when you're younger, you don't care as much about it. Or maybe I'm just speak for myself. I didn't care as much about it. It's like, I didn't really have... It kind of reminds me of that movie Born Yesterday a little bit. If you've ever seen the original movie, it's so good. When she goes to Washington, D.C., and she doesn't know anything about the history. And then she kind of gets educated just walking around and with that guy. And, you know, I've never been to Washington, D.C., and I've always wanted to go. Like, well, the last 10 years I've really wanted to go, I would say. But before that, I didn't really care, you know? Like, I never went on the 7th grade trip. And because why? When everybody else went on the 7th grade trip? Because I was bullied horribly. And I just didn't want to put myself on a week-long trip, you know, where or a long weekend or whatever it was, over a fall break, and I couldn't imagine a worse misery. There's been a lot of situations like that that I've missed out on in my life because I just didn't want to deal with, you know, people's cruelty. And it makes me sad that I allowed that, you know. But like Washington, D.C. is a place that I've wanted to go to, you know. And it's interesting, like when I got together with Alex, I would say his history wasn't something that was super important to him, but like since his grandfather's passed away and, you know, like now that his family's here and stuff, like Alex's history is like really important to him. Like when they pull out the pictures and they're looking and stuff, and he loves to tell me stories about Venezuela and what he remembers and going to Margarita Island and, you know, like Christmases on the beach and, you know, his grandmother's like apartment there that they would stay in. And I mean, she's here now, but you know, I think that maybe sometimes like in my own family history, I don't think meant as much to me. But that's with my family history, like especially with my mom's, I've always been like really super interested in it. Like just asking like questions more about like knowing what my mom was like when she was younger, you know? And like with my like dad's family, when we all get together, like I always want to know like stuff about my dad, but like that's all they do is sit around and tell stories. It's fun. And have pitch-ins of like Jell-O salad and those cookies that are like those Chinese noodles with butterscotch on them. I hate those cookies so much. But my aunts do make some mean Rice Krispie treats, but I can't have them anymore because apparently Rice Krispie treats have gelatin in them. So, but they always tell the funniest stories, you know. And my dad's family was so incredibly poor when he was growing. I mean, both my parents' families were poor when they were growing up, like really, really poor. But my dad's side was super poor. My dad actually didn't know his dad and like never met his dad before he was 4 because my grandma got pregnant right before my grandfather went into World War II, and he was stationed in Germany, like on the ground. And my dad, so like my grandfather came back like after my dad turned 4. It's crazy to think, like, I mean, I know that we still have, like, servicemen and women that are, like, out of the country and, like, you know, but, like, to think that somebody wouldn't, like, I mean, you see these things all the time. You know, I mean, there's videos on YouTube, you know, where, you know, somebody hasn't ever met their child or whatever, but it's baffling, isn't it? It's, like, crazy sometimes. And, my dad had an outhouse till he was 21 years old. Which, that's crazy to me, you know. My dad was never really like the dad that, like, where am I at on time? I was going to stop here in about a half a minute. My dad was, like, never the dad that would say things like, you know, like, well, I had to walk in 10 feet of snow and whatever. He never said that, but I will tell you that my dad paved roads in the summers and waited tables during the school year all through college, when he was working, or when he was in college to pay for college. And my dad used to say to me, like when I would bitch and complain about things, which I really, it wasn't often. It was funny because like Alex and my dad, like they were talking one time about me being an only child, and Alex was kind of giving me a hard time or whatever, and my dad like put him in his place. He was like, Peter was never that only child. He was never a spoiled brat. He never like, you know, he was just like, I've talked about this on here before, but my dad like put Alex in his place and was like, you know, Peter was just not that kid. He was like the kid that always shared his toys, and you know, he always, you know, was very polite and sweet and whatever. What happened to me? Like seriously, what happened to me? But anyway, lonely is a word that I got a lot growing up. Like, you know, people would always say like, Peter seems so lonely. Well, I was lonely, you know. But like if I would complain about having to do something that I didn't want to do, like with the family or something like that, you know, my dad would be like, let me tell you what you can complain about. When you're walking in the 100-degree August heat behind a paving truck, he was like, you know, then you can complain. That's what he would say to me. But it was always like, oh, no, classical music. It was always like when it was like something to do with like, you know, I don't want to go and do this. My dad would like, stop complaining. You know, my parents, I think because of the way that they were raised, were always just so grateful and felt so blessed for the life that they had. And, you know, that like exuded out in like everything they did, and you know, with me and things. And like my mom always like had an appreciation for like the simple small things in life. She always did, you know. My dad's the youngest of 5, and his oldest brother, who passed away, I think I vlogged part of that going up there, his brother passed away, so that would have been like 2 years ago. My uncle, he was like 15 years older than my dad. Well, let's see, my dad's 78. That's my uncle, you know. Yeah, like 15 years older than him. People in my dad's family live very, very long. My grandmother passed away because she fell and hurt her hip. She was 93 years old, and not like somebody that would have had complications. She had complications from it, and it was like really kind of bizarre what happened. And then she came home, and then she had to go back to the hospital. This is my dad's mom. And then my dad's dad was actually with his best friend, and he was driving. They would go eat breakfast every morning. I was actually in my dad's hometown when this happened, because I used to stay with my aunt on her farm in the summers. I loved it. I would stay with my dad's next sister up. She lives on a farm, and I would stay with her in the summers, and I would go everywhere with her. I'd be up there for like 2 or 3 weeks. It was because they would have the tennis championships here in Indianapolis, and this was when I was still real young. I was like a ball boy for the tennis championships because I was really into tennis. And so like that was what we all did in the summer. We would volunteer there for it. It was this big deal. We got to get the tennis, you know. We would like all go when we weren't like, oh my God, those were such fun summers. But like I did have some friends with that. But like we would like go all over and have people sign our rackets and stuff like that. This is how progressive that my mother was even back then. So all of these tennis people were coming out one day. We would get our racket cover signed, you know, and all like the, you know, John McEnroe and Bjorn Borg and all these people. And my mom said, you need to go get her autograph. And I was like, I don't know who that is, Mom. And now I'm like, at the time, I'm probably like 10, okay, or 11. And my mom goes, she was like, she's an important part of history. You need to go get her. And it was Renee Richards. And Renee Richards was the first transgender, like one of the first transgender athletes ever. And I didn't even really understand at the time what that meant. But I remember later my mom pulled it out, like my racket. And she was like, because she had kept it. I still have that down in the basement, that racket cover. With John McEnroe, Bjorn Borg, and Renee Richards, Chris Everloyd. All of them on there. Pete Sampras. That was later, though. I kept it and still got people sign that. I was really into tennis. So anyway, but when I was younger, I would stay with my aunt and uncle on their farm. And their daughter is like, I'm as close to as I am with Caroline. And she lives here in Indianapolis. But she's older than me. She's like 10 years older than me. But we're real close. I love her. And so I was up there when my grandfather passed away, and he was 74, and he was a retired homicide detective, and he and his friend would go and eat breakfast at like they would get up and go to breakfast at like 5:30 in the morning, and then they would go golf, and they were going from the restaurant, I think, to like golfing or whatever, and my grandfather was driving the car, and he just like, they were like on a side road, and all of a sudden he just like slumped back, and like just the car went like off the road, and he just died, like was gone like that. That was some funeral. I remember that funeral as a kid. I was like 5 years old when that happened, and they did like, you know, the gun salute because he was in the military, and he was you know, had won medals as a soldier and as a detective. He actually, I was telling somebody this. Who was I? Oh, I was telling the Psychic Twins this. And I've talked about it on here too. I don't know a whole lot about it. My dad was I need to find out more about it. My dad was telling me about this recently, that he was like on the cover of like True Detective or True Crime magazine or something, because he solved like the first something case, and I got it wrong. I thought it was like they were like digging for this body like out in this lake, and my dad said it was him and his friend, and they were like out fishing like on their day off, and they were actually talking about the case. And as they were talking about the case, he just was telling Alex and I about this. Did I talk about this on there? And like a body part, I think it was a hand, came like out of the water or something. And so yeah, my grandfather was also a pool shark, which is a little unknown fact. I shoot pool like nobody's business. I probably got it from him. And my dad said my grandma used to get so mad because on Saturday nights he would go down to go shoot pool, and she'd say, I hate when you go down there and you come back and you smell like cigarette smoke. And my dad's parents were teetotalers. They didn't drink at all, like at all. Most of my relatives on my dad's side of the family don't drink at all. And they would like each get like a big bottle of pop for the week, and they had to make their, like in the summer, and they had to make their bottle of pop like last. And so my dad and his brother and sisters would all like take my one aunt that they all tease. They would take her bottle and take sips out of it, and so then she would like pick it up and she would like look down at it like she was trying to see how much was left in there. I have all these hilarious stories. You guys loved the candy stories so much last night. That was so fun talking about that. But they have all these funny stories about that. And like every year, like my dad, like he'll watch that movie, A Christmas Story. He loves that movie. He's like, this is, because it also takes place in upstate Indiana, and he's like, that was literally me growing up. Like he was like, that was us. Like everything about it, from the schoolhouse to the I Double Dog Dare You, all that kind of stuff, the Red Ryder BB gun, all of it. He's like, that was us, like growing up. Like it just, or the neighborhood, everything, like that was us growing up. And although they didn't have an outhouse in it, but my dad, whenever I bring that up, he's always like, we were extremely poor, Peter. He goes, you know, I mean, 5 kids. We were very, very poor. I remember when I was a little kid, I don't know what makes me think of this, but when I was, so to get into graduate school, I had to do this huge essay. It was like 25 pages, and one of the things I had to do in there was I had to like write like, who is a role model for me as like a social worker or somebody that like did like spoke from like the point of view of like a social worker, like in what they did. And I talked about my dad actually, because when I was a kid, my dad would take me, he would do, like after church on Sundays when I was with him, he would do house calls on people. And I remember this one incident that we went to these people's house, like way out in the middle of nowhere, and you know, I'm in my little tie and stuff, and we're sitting there, and before we went inside, my dad said, now, I want you to say yes or no, sir, and yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, in there, and I said, okay, and he said, this man lost his hand working in a factory, and he's very ashamed. Like, this is like almost kind of an Atticus Finch moment. My dad was very like that when I was growing up, and he was like, you know, he feels very ashamed because he can't support his family right now. So when we go in there, he was like, you know, don't look a lot at the hand and just be very respectful. And I was like, okay. And I probably was like 7 or 8, you know, at the time. And we go in there, and I remember my dad's like changing this guy's dressing on his hand, and you know, they're just being so nice to my dad, you know, like, oh, Dr. Monn, and, you know, and I remember the wife said, would you like to stay for dinner? And my dad said, we would love to stay for dinner. And I remember we sat there at the dinner table with his family, you know, and had dinner, and my dad just sat there and talked, and they just interacted with all of us. And I look back on that, you know, and it's like my dad teaching me, you know, like, how to be a human being just by, like, who he was as a person. My dad's such a great man. I have so much respect for him. Everybody's going to work on Monday. All right, well, listen, I'm going to get off here. I think this went a little longer than I thought it was going to go. I always say it's going to be short, and then it goes longer. Anyway, listen, I love you guys, and I hope you're having a wonderful beginning to your week. And what else? Let's see. If nobody else told you this today, I love you. Everybody deserves to hear that every day from somebody. And have an amazing day unless you have other plans. Bye. Love you. And I didn't say I'll see you tomorrow, so, or did I? I don't remember. But anyway, I'll see you tomorrow, and I love you. Bye.